guys, out in this kind of weather right now, you really need to have some sort of communication to other people. Especially over here, because I have no cell service whatsoever. And temperature's starting to drop a good bit, and we're expecting some snow, possibly some ice. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. Guys, we're getting into winter. We are in winter. So we need to expect some bad driving conditions. This rain can quickly turn to slush and ice, snow, and we need to be extra careful on how we drive. And if you don't have a temperature gauge in your vehicle, like mine, what I'm driving is a 2019 and it does not have a temperature gauge, which is kind of weird. So there are signs that you can tell if you're still driving in the wet and not ice. Clearly, if it's water hitting your windshield, it is water, so it's still above freezing. One thing that you need to keep an eye on is that water coming off the wipers. If it starts turning to slush, you need to start slowing down. You need to start being real extra careful. One thing you can help do to prevent ice from freezing over your windscreen is put your heat on your window on defrost. Crank it all the way up. Put your visors down. That way it helps trap a little bit of heat towards the top of it. It's not going to prevent it from freezing over. It will, however, delay the process a little bit. Guys, check your mirrors. If you can see your mirrors are starting to ice up, if you have the defrost on your mirrors, you need to be using it because that's important. Another thing, if you don't know exactly the temperature, look at your mirrors, which should be defrosting. If you can see tire spray, if you see water coming off your tires, that means you're still driving in water. You're not driving on ice quite yet. But if it starts turning to ice, then you're going to start seeing less and less wheel spray. You need to keep a good eye on the wheel spray. Because if it stops and it looks wet out, guys, you're driving on ice. You need to slow it way down. Be very, very, very easy on the brakes, but extremely light on the gas. And if it's getting real bad, if you have chains, consider using them. But remember that chains only work, or should not be used above a certain speed. I think it's like 25 miles an hour. Again, guys, I highly recommend having a CB radio, mainly because if you do run into some trouble, if you're out here like where I am with no cell service at all, you know, maybe there's going to be another truck or another vehicle with a CB going. I know it's less common these days, but if you get into some trouble, hop on that CB, let somebody know that you need help, you don't have any cell service, and they could, you know, if they're a decent human being, you know, they'll stop for you and help you out. You know, you just gotta let them know where you're at. Guys, if you're on an interstate or a major U.S. highway, remember that these places, these roads do have mile markers, mileposts that show what mile you're at on that highway or interstate. And they're all pretty uniform across the United States. You know, I-10, for example, you know, mile 0 starts at in Anthony, Texas, and I don't know what it goes up to, somewhere like in the high 800s or 900 miles on to the Louisiana border. And guys, all across that that interstate, you know, there's mile markers, and every mile it shows you what mile you're at. Keep an eye on those mileposts, because if you run into trouble, you got to know where you're at. You know, it's like that all on every interstate in the United States, except for California. Now, California does have mileposts. Theirs is just a little differently. They're not green like the rest of the U.S. They're white with black lettering, and they show what mile you're at in a certain county and it tells you what county you're in. So keep that in mind. You can still use those mileposts in California to let people know where you're at. And a lot of places in California, they also have emergency phones along the interstate. Whether they work or not, I don't know. I've never had to use one. Guys, there is also a United States interstate in Arizona that is not in miles, it is in kilometers. But again, every kilometer they have a milepost sign. Again, it will be listed in KM, and it's every kilometer. The exits, I believe, are listed in KM, so keep that in mind. I don't remember the interstate number, but it goes between Tucson and Mexico. So if you're on that interstate, you come run into trouble, just keep an eye on that milepost listed in kilometers. Also, guys, a few things that you need to keep in mind is obviously bridges freeze over before roads. And even if you do stop seeing wheel spray, doesn't necessarily mean that you are on ice. It could also just mean that there is less water on the road to create enough visible wheel spray. So definitely do keep that in mind. It's not, it's not, oh my God, I gotta pull over, it's ice. It's also just a possibility that there is just less water on the road at that particular spot. Okay, guys, and also in case an emergency does occur while you are on the road in bad conditions, wintry conditions, make sure that you do have road triangles, the reflective ones. Keep them in your vehicle at all times. Definitely keep a fire extinguisher in your vehicle if you can. I'm required to keep one in mine. I'm also required to keep triangles and or flares, so keep that in mind. Those are very good to have in your personal vehicle. But guys, even if the roads do look dry or they do look wet, not ice, and there is snow on the side of the road, that means that they either sprayed the road or they put salt down or sand or whatever to help melt the snow. That does not mean that you can go at normal speeds. Please do remember to keep the speed down, keep your following distance at a reasonable distance. Don't tailgate, don't follow too closely, the normal, sensible thing to do. And guys, I've said this before and I'll say it again, I used to live in Massachusetts, unfortunately, but that experience did introduce me to winter real winter driving for the first time. And a lot of people up in Massachusetts and New England in general have big four-wheel drive vehicles. Not a bad thing. However, four-wheel drive doesn't mean four-wheel stop. Four-wheel drive ain't gonna do jack shit on ice. So just because you have a four-wheel drive, it does not mean that you can drive like an asshole. It doesn't mean that you can drive normally in adverse conditions. You still need to keep it slow. You still need to keep your following distance further than normal. Just drive cautiously, no matter what you're driving. And if you do have a four-wheel drive vehicle, which a lot of us probably do, I do, then if you have the option of a four-wheel drive, automatic four-wheel drive, if you're driving in those kind of conditions, I would recommend using that, because what that does is it detects wheel slippage and then it kicks it into four-wheel drive. I don't think it's going to kick it into four low. It should kick it into four high. But that's only when it detects wheel slippage. So, it'll turn it on the fly, if you know what I mean. Guys, if y'all have any other winter driving suggestions or tips, just leave it down in the comments. I don't plan on making any video for tomorrow, the 31st. So, yeah, I guess I will see y'all next year. Happy New Year.